I live alone in a modest house in Syracuse, New York, the same one where I raised my only child, Brandon. Since my husband, Kenneth, passed away 3 years ago, the house has been quiet. Too quiet. That Tuesday evening started like most others. I stood at the kitchen sink, scrubbing a coffee mug that once belonged to Natalie, my daughter-in-law. It was one of the few things she'd left behind after the last argument before the silence began. I don't know why I kept it, habit maybe, or maybe hope. The house echoed with the sounds of my routine. 1 plate, 1 fork, 1 cup. The television murmured faintly from the living room, stuck on a home improvement show I wasn't really watching. Just noise to fill the space. I dried the mug and placed it in the rack beside the others, each one a little monument to meals that once meant something. As I turned to wipe the counter, my phone rang. Not many people call me these days. I reached for it slowly, expecting maybe a spam number or a call from the pharmacy. But the screen said Brandon. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the name. Brandon, my son, my boy. The last time we spoke, he'd slammed the door behind him and told me to stay out of his life if I couldn't support his vision. I had refused to invest in his so-called business plan, another vague pitch, another desperate ask. Kenneth would have known how to handle it, but Kenneth was gone. I answered with a hesitant hello. There was a pause. Then his voice softer than I remembered. Mom, it's me, Brandon. My throat tightened. I know it's been a while, too long, he said. Natalie and we've been talking, and we want to see you. We miss you. I didn't say anything at first. Part of me didn't believe it. Another part ached too. He continued, Natalie's cooking that lemon rosemary chicken you love. Can you come over for dinner? Tonight? I glanced at the calendar on the fridge. Nothing written, nothing planned, just another blank square in a sea of quiet. I suppose I could, I heard myself say. His relief came through the phone like a warm gust. Great, I'll text you the address. We moved to Westchester last year. It's not far. Not far, I thought, but it felt like a world away. As I ended the call, I glanced at Kenneth's photo on the side table, smiling, calm, forever steady. He always used to say, time doesn't fix everything, but sometimes it opens the door just enough. I wasn't sure if this was the door opening or something else entirely. But that night I stepped through it. By 6:30 I was in a taxi heading south toward Westchester. The sky was beginning to dim, casting long shadows on the road. I hadn't seen Brandon in over a year, and yet here I was, dressed in my best navy sweater and gray slacks, holding a pie I'd baked that afternoon just in case. The driver whistled as we pulled into the neighborhood. Big money out here, he said, glancing at the rows of gated homes and tree-lined boulevards. I nodded, though I couldn't imagine how Brandon could afford this. The last time we spoke, he was asking for money to invest in a hospitality startup, though the details were vague at best. His new address was a sprawling stone colonial, at the end of a circular driveway, complete with trimmed hedges, ornate fountains, and warm glowing lanterns. I stepped out of the car feeling small. Before I could reach the door, it opened. A woman stood there, mid-50s, graying hair pulled back neatly, wearing a crisp black dress and apron. Her name tag read Rosa. She gave me a smile, but there was something behind her eyes. Not fear exactly. Something more like concern. Mrs. Whitman? She asked gently. Yes, I replied, adjusting the pie in my arms. They're waiting for you. Please come in. The foyer was the size of my entire living room. Polished marble floors, gold-framed paintings, and a chandelier that sparkled like ice. A grand staircase curved upward like something out of a movie. I barely had time to take it all in when Brandon appeared at the end of the hall. Mom, he said, arms open wide. He looked good, healthier than I remembered, dressed in an expensive button-down and tailored slacks. His smile was wide, a little too wide, and his hug lingered longer than expected. You look great, he said, stepping back. Really, so glad you're here. Natalie emerged from behind him, her silk dress flowing like water, perfume wafting as she leaned in to kiss my cheek. Elaine, you look stunning, she said, her tone smooth, controlled. We're so happy to have you. She took the pie from my hands like a hostess receiving a gift at a gala. As they led me through the house, I struggled to keep up emotionally. Everything felt rehearsed, like I had walked into a scene that had already been blocked and choreographed. We entered the dining room, and I stopped in my tracks. A mahogany table stretched down the center, set for 3. Crystal glasses, folded napkins, fine silverware. Candles flickered beside vases of white roses. "This is beautiful," I whispered. Natalie beamed. "We wanted tonight to be special, a new beginning." Brandon pulled out my chair and gestured for me to sit. His movements were fluid, practiced. He poured wine before I could respond, filling my glass with a vintage that probably cost more than my monthly groceries. "To family," he said, raising his glass. I raised mine, hesitated, and sipped. Something about the wine's taste felt sharp, metallic, but I smiled anyway. It was the beginning of something. I just didn't know what. Dinner began smoothly, too smoothly. We moved through the courses like dancers on a polished stage. Natalie brought out a roasted beet salad with candied pecans. Brandon opened a second bottle of wine before the first had even run low. Conversation flowed, but not naturally, it was curated. They asked about the restaurants I co-owned with Kenneth before his passing, about the properties, about the new manager I was hiring at the downtown location. Each question felt warm but calculated, like they were reading from a script. I told myself not to be paranoid. Maybe they were just curious. Maybe this was their way of reconnecting. Still, something about the way Brandon kept refilling my wine glass made me uneasy. I'd barely taken 3 sips, yet my head felt lighter than it should have. Then came the message. My phone buzzed quietly in my pocket. I pulled it out under the table, just to check. The number wasn't saved in my contacts, but it came with local area code. One message, all caps. "Get UP and leave, now ow. Do not tell your son. My breath caught. My first instinct was to assume it was spam, but something about the urgency, the specificity, made my skin crawl. Brandon glanced at me across the table. "Everything okay, Mom?" I forced a smile, slipping the phone face down beside my plate. "Yes, just the restaurant. Probably a scheduling issue." Natalie leaned in. "Do you need to step away?" "No," I said too quickly. "Just a sip of water." I picked up the glass of wine instead, pretending to drink. My hands trembled slightly as I brought the rim to my lips, careful not to let the liquid pass. "Excuse me," I said finally, standing. "I should freshen up." Brandon pointed toward the hallway. "First door on the left, we'll wait." But I didn't turn left. The message rang in my ears. "Leave, don't say anything. Instead, I continued down the hall, past the powder room, toward the faint sound of running water. Rosa stood at the kitchen sink, rinsing wine glasses. Her shoulders tensed as I entered, but she didn't turn around. The kitchen door, slightly ajar, showed a quiet garden beyond moonlight, stone pavers, a wooden gate at the far end. I moved toward it. Rosa still didn't speak, but just as I passed her, she whispered without turning her head. "Go now, don't drink anything else. I froze for a beat. Our eyes didn't meet. Her voice was low, urgent, but not panicked. I stepped out into the garden, heart racing. The cool night air hit me like a slap. I walked faster, half running across the lawn in my low heels, gripping the side of my purse like a weapon. At the gate, I looked back. No one had followed. Only then did I pull out my phone again. A second message was waiting. "They put something in your drink. You were not supposed to leave. My fingers shook as I opened my rideshare app. 5 minutes to pick up. 5 minutes to figure out if I was losing my mind or escaping something far worse. The rideshare driver arrived on time, a navy sedan with soft jazz playing on low volume. I slid into the back seat, gave my home address in Syracuse, then leaned my head against the window, trying to calm the storm inside me. Streetlights blurred past as we moved through the quiet suburban roads. I stared at the screen again. That message, whoever sent it knew details no one should. I tapped the number and pressed call. It rang twice. Then a voice answered, calm, female, careful. "I hoped you would call." I swallowed. "Who is this? Why did you tell me to leave?" A pause. "I can't give you my name, but you were in danger tonight, Mrs. Whitman?" "Danger from my own son?" I asked, voice sharp. "That's not possible." Silence stretched for a moment. Then the woman replied, "Your son owes $2.1 million to people who don't send reminders. They send warnings, broken ones. I sat up straighter, stunned. He's desperate, she continued. Brandon borrowed against everything: credit lines, your husband's life insurance, even your old restaurant brand name. The only thing left was you. My heart sank. What do you mean, me? There were documents prepared for you to sign tonight. Full transfer of your business assets, power of attorney, and real estate holdings. The wine you drank, Natalie laced it with Zitronol. I blinked. I don't know what that is. It's a neurological enhancer, not illegal in small doses but dangerous in combination with alcohol. It heightens suggestibility, makes people agree to things they'd never normally say yes to. That's why you felt dizzy, and why they kept refilling your glass. My mouth went dry. My hands shook. They needed you to sign willingly. No force, no coercion. Just an emotional night with family and a pen nearby. You'd wake up in the morning and have no idea how they got everything. I closed my eyes, trying to recall the dinner, Brandon's eager toasts, Natalie's warmth, the repeated pouring. How do you know all this? I whispered. The voice paused again. Then, because I heard them plan it, every word, and I couldn't stay silent. I held my breath. Rosa? I asked. Silence. Then, quietly, please don't say my name again. They think I'm invisible. I need it to stay that way. For now. Tears welled in my eyes, not from betrayal but from the quiet, steady loyalty of a stranger. They were going to steal everything Kenneth and I built, I said, almost to myself. Yes, she answered, but they didn't. Because you listened, and walked away. The driver glanced at me through the mirror, his brow furrowed slightly. You okay back there, Mom? I nodded, eyes still locked on the phone screen. No, I whispered, but I will be. Good, Rosa replied. But please be careful. Brandon is running out of time, and when people are that desperate, they try again. Sometimes louder, sometimes meaner. As the car turned onto the highway back toward the city, I gripped my phone tight. The same hands that once held my son's as he learned to walk were now holding proof he tried to destroy me. This time, I wouldn't pretend not to see. 20 minutes after I made the call, the police were already en route. I sat in the back of the Uber, watching the route on the screen as we turned back toward Westchester. My hands were steady now. My mind wasn't spinning. Fear had burned itself away and left only clarity. The dispatcher had asked if I was sure if I really wanted to return to the scene. I said yes, because if I didn't stop them now, they'd try this with someone else. And I couldn't live with that. The mansion looked exactly as it had when I left, like it belonged on the cover of a lifestyle magazine. But this time, it didn't look grand. It looked fake. Like a beautiful mask hiding a monstrous intention. The front door opened almost the moment I rang the bell. Brandon stood there, breathless. Mom, where were you? We were worried sick. I gave him a tired smile. Just needed some air. I walked a bit too far, I guess. This neighborhood's lovely. He blinked, confused. For over 30 minutes? Natalie appeared behind him, dress wrinkled, hair slightly out of place. We thought you fainted or something, she said with a nervous laugh. Come in, sit down. Let me get you water. No need, I said, but I wouldn't mind sitting. The dining room had been hastily reset. Papers that were on the table earlier were gone. Dishes cleared, wine glasses replaced. I sat back in my chair, the same one they'd offered earlier, with so much charm. Brandon and Natalie resumed their positions on either side of me, smiling too much, talking too fast. Let's finish the evening on a happy note, Natalie said, already pouring a fresh glass of wine. We were just about to toast again. I accepted the glass but didn't drink. You know, I said softly, I've been thinking a lot about the night Brandon was born. He stiffened beside me. It was storming outside, I continued, swirling the wine but never sipping, and the labor took 14 hours. I was exhausted, but the second they placed him in my arms, I knew I would protect him, no matter what. That's sweet, Mom, Brandon said tightly, but maybe we can toast first, then talk? Sure, I said, raising my glass but stopping just short of drinking, to family. 3 sharp knocks interrupted the moment. Police. I stood before either of them could react. Officers, I called out, loud enough for them to hear from the hallway. In here. Natalie's face turned white. Brandon shot up from his chair. What the hell is this? 2 uniformed officers entered the dining room, one already snapping on gloves. Brandon Whitman, the taller one, said, "You're under arrest for attempted poisoning, fraud, and elder abuse." Natalie stumbled backward as Brandon shouted, "This is insane. She's confused. This is my mother." I set the glass down gently, and that glass, I told the officer, contains a substance called Zetranol. Lab tests should confirm it. The second officer stepped forward. "Ma'am," he said to Natalie, "you're under arrest as a co-conspirator. We have evidence of coordinated planning, including targeted research, unauthorized access to legal documents, and intent to defraud." "No," Natalie whimpered. "Brandon made me do it. I didn't want any of this." Brandon was livid. "You said we were in this together. You said this was the only way." He turned to me one last time, eyes wide and desperate. "Mom, please, you can't let them take me. You're my mother." I met his gaze, and for the first time I didn't see my son. I saw the man who tried to take everything his father and I had built. "You had a choice," I said quietly, "and you chose betrayal." The officers led them both away. As the front door closed behind them, I looked around the now silent dining room. The candles still flickered. The food still sat untouched. But the illusion was gone. And what remained was the truth. The house felt hollow once the squad cars disappeared down the long driveway. I remained in the dining room for a few more minutes, staring at the wine glass, the flickering candles, the flawless place settings, everything carefully curated to cover up the ugliness beneath. Then I heard footsteps. Soft, cautious. Rosa stepped into the room, her hands clasped in front of her apron. Her face was still, but her eyes shimmered with unspoken truth. We stood in silence for a long moment. "You knew," I said. She nodded once. "Yes." "You heard everything, didn't you? The documents, the wine, all of it." "I clean Mr. Brandon's office every Tuesday," she said quietly. They spoke as if I couldn't understand, like I wasn't even there. My heart ached not just for myself, but for her. "You didn't have to warn me," I said. "You could have looked the other way. You could have lost your job. Or worse." Rosa looked down. "I've worked for many families, some see me, some don't. But you, when you arrived tonight, you thanked me. You looked me in the eye, you said my name." Tears welled in my eyes. "So I couldn't let them do that to you," she finished, "not when you've already lost enough." I crossed the room and took her hand in mine, small, calloused, warm with quiet strength. "Rosa," I whispered, "you didn't just save me. You saved everything Kenneth and I built. Everything that still matters." For the first time that night, I felt safe. Not because the danger was over, but because someone still chose what was right. Even when no one was watching. 3 days later, I called Rosa from my kitchen in Syracuse. She answered on the second ring, her voice cautious. "Miss Whitman?" "Elaine," I corrected gently. "No more formalities." A pause, then a small, hopeful smile in her voice. "Elaine." I took a breath. "Do you have another job lined up?" "No, I didn't want to rush. It's hard to get references after something like this." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. "I understand, which is why I'm offering you something better." She didn't speak, so I continued. "I co-own a restaurant in Syracuse. We're opening a new location next month, and we need someone trustworthy. Someone with judgment, someone who sees things others miss." Another long silence. "You mean me?" "I mean exactly you," I said. "Full-time management position, $60,000 to start, health benefits, profit sharing after the first year, and a place where people say your name with respect." Her voice cracked. "Elaine, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll start Monday, 10 a.m. She laughed through tears. "Yes, I'll be there." When we hung up, I walked to the refrigerator and pulled off Brandon's photo. I didn't throw it away. I just placed it in the drawer, out of sight, but not erased. Then I reached for a magnet and pinned up something new, the address of our new restaurant. Beneath it, in blue ink, I wrote one word. Rosa. Because some family you're born with, and some family finds you when you need them most. Not every story ends with justice, but sometimes it begins again with truth. I lost a son that night, but I gained something else, a deeper understanding of what love should never ask for, and what trust should always protect. To anyone listening, protect what you've built. Question what feels off. and never ignore the quiet voice that tells you to stand up and leave. If this story moved you, share it, comment below, or just tell someone you trust that they matter. Because the right people, they don't need your signature.